Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining me in this tutorial first of all. So in this video we are going to learn the steps that one requires to follow for deploying a React Node based application on Kubernetes AWS cluster. So this is the one which is currently running on my local, right? And this is the one which is running on the Kubernetes cluster I have created on AWS. Now, if you are facing issues with the deployment part, when it comes to Kubernetes and nodes and pods and, all that stuff, if you find it difficult, this video will definitely make everything easier for you guys. Even if Kubernetes is new to you or Docker is new to you, you will be able to learn each and everything very easily, provided you check each and everything right from the beginning till the end. Don't skip anything, right? Just follow the steps which I'm going to show you in this video, and you will be able to deploy your application very easily on AWS on your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so let's dive into the tutorial and check out the steps which have been used for deploying this React Node application on AWS. Coming back to VS Code, so we have two things here. Backend and frontend. Okay, so for backend we have used Node, and for the frontend we have used React. Okay, so this is my frontend which is running on port number 3000, and this is backend which is running on port 5000, as you can see, and they both are connected to each other. Okay, and I'm able to see the application in front of me on my local. Now, once you're done with creating this stuff, what is the next thing you have to do for making it live on AWS? And if you want to make it scalable, definitely Kubernetes is one of the most beautiful options that you have, with the help of which you can make it easily very, very scalable. So just follow these steps which I've listed down over here in the notepad file. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create an IAM user. How you will do it? Simply come on the AWS console, okay, and here you will see IAM. Let me just open a new one for you guys so that I can tell you everything from the scratch. So here you have to type IAM. Come on IAM, and then you have to come on users. Then there is this create user button that you have to click, and here you can mention a name, testing React Node. Just click on next, then come on attach policies directly, and then come on administrator access. Simply click on next, and then click on create user for creating a user. Now once you create a user, you will be able to see it like this over here in this IAM console. So if your username is, let's say, Ubuntu123, so you'll see it over here under username column. Now you have to create the credentials for this user. For that you'll have to click on this username. Then here you can simply come on create access key, and you can create the access key like this. Okay, simply click on create access key and your access keys will get created. Okay, once your access keys gets created, so you'll get two keys. One is your access key and the second one is your secret access key. So you'll get it right away when you click this create access key. This way you will get the access key and the secret access key. Just copy them and paste them in a notepad file or somewhere where you can remember them, and then you can reuse them, because it is something that is required for logging into the AWS console through VS Code. Okay, so this is the first thing that we have to do. What is the next thing? So now we have two things in place, front-end and back-end. So the next thing that comes is, when it comes to Kubernetes deployment, Docker images, creating Docker images. Now, because we have two different things, front end and back end, so now we have to create two different images, one for the front end and the other for the back end. Okay, so what you have to do here is you have to come inside this backend name folder in which you have your node applications code, and you have to simply create a Docker file here. Okay, so in that Docker file, you have to mention the node version that you're using, the working directory path, then the package. You can just copy this and paste it as it is. No worries. Okay, this is the entry point of our backend, in which our backend code is there. So it's a simple server that I've created. Okay, and we are exposing it to port number 5000. This command is going to help us in installing the packages required for running the backend. Okay, so this stuff you have to put in the Docker file, and that's it. Just close it. Okay, that's how you can create the Docker file for backend. Similarly, you have to create a Docker file for the front end also, because there are going to be two images, one for the front end and the other for the backend. So when it comes to Kubernetes deployment, we need images. We deploy our application with the help of Docker images. Okay, so it's very easy to create. You don't have to worry about that you don't know Docker or you don't know about Docker file. Just click this button and name your file as Docker file like this. Automatically you'll see this icon over here. Now for the front end, you have to put all this stuff. Okay, just copy from my file, which I'm going to share in the description section in the form of a link, and just paste it over here like this. Okay, now what is the next thing? Let's come back on the notepad file. So we are done with creating the Docker file for the backend. We're done with creating the Docker file for the front end. It's time for us to create the images for both front end and backend. This is a command that you can use for creating the images. So come back on your VS Code. Let me go up. I'm going to show you each and everything one by one. Okay. Really sorry, cannot show it to you practically. Why? Because it's a very time consuming process. But whatever I've done, I've experimented a lot, and then I came to know about the process, which we can follow for deploying our React Node application on cloud using Kubernetes cluster. So that's what I'm sharing with you guys here. Just give me a moment. So I'm trying to search for that command. Okay, so if you see here, docker build -t backend dot. Okay, so you have to be in your backend folder. Find where your backend, your node code is present, and then you have to fire this command docker build -t backend. It will create an image named backend in your Docker desktop like this. Okay, so if you are planning to deploy your application on Kubernetes, you need to have Docker desktop installed on your device. If you don't know how to install it, please visit YouTube video, YouTube or some online platform where you can learn to install Docker desktop. In case you come across any issues, please let me know about it, but it's not a very big deal. It's not a very big task. You'll be able to install it very easily. The way we install other types of softwares, this also can be done. So it has created for us a backend named image. So all that thing, all these things you'll see happening in real time in your terminal when you will fire this command. Same thing you will see when you will fire this command for front end. Okay, for creating the front end image. Let me just show it to you once. Where is that? Just a second. Okay, yeah. So docker build -t front end. That's the command that you have to fire once you're done with creating the Docker file in your front end. Okay, so now you're going to have two images, one for the front end and the other for the back end. Okay, you're ready with your images. What is the next thing that you have to do? You have to log in into your AWS console. Okay, I think that point I didn't mention here. Let me just do it. Log in into your AWS. How you will do it? So there is the command AWS configure. that you can simply fire for logging into your AWS. Let me just show it to you once. So I'm going to open a new terminal just to show you how you can log in. AWS configure. You remember we created an IAM user. So this is the access key that you have to put here. This is the secret access key that you can put here directly. And then it will ask for you the region. So if you are working in some other region, you can just copy and paste it. Otherwise, you can check the region in the URL part. So it says US East 1. So that's what it is coming by default for me over here. So I'll just click enter. Okay, because I don't need to change it. Then I would like to go with JSON only. That's how you can log in into your AWS console using your IAM user credentials. Okay, that's the next step. Okay, once you're done with logging into it, you'll be able to fire all the AWS related commands. You'll be able to create, Kubernetes clusters, nodes, everything from this terminal only. You don't have to go to AWS to create everything manually. No, there is no requirement like that. You need to just know the commands. You'll be able to create everything easily. So now the next thing that we have to do is ECR. We need to create an ECR. What is this ECR? It is Elastic Container Registry. So for that, I don't have any command. I created it manually. No problem. I'll tell you how you can create it. So you have to just come on ECR, and this is what you will get. And here you have to click on create repository. You have to create two different repositories, one for the backend and the other for the frontend. Okay, remember this. So if you have, let's say, three different things you're using for your application. In the backend, you're using Flask, and the front end, you're using React and Angular. Let's assume it. Then you'll have to create three different repositories, and three different images will come. One for each technology. Okay, remember this concept. Number of technologies is equal to number of images. As simple as that. Come on, create repository. Just put a name here. For me, it is backend for the backend stuff, and for the front end, it is front end. Just put the name here, backend, and click on create. A repository with name backend will get created. Same thing you have to do while creating the repository for the front end also. Just put the name here, front end, and click create. So it will create for you two different repositories, one with name backend and the other with name frontend. Okay, once you're done with creating the repositories, you have to make sure that you have copied these URLs. Okay, or just check these URLs once. Fine, because this is something that we will be using for pushing our images into these repos. How we'll do it? Let me just show that to you. So the next thing that we have to do after creating the ECRs is this command. Okay, so here if you see, I've used 241533. Where is this address coming from? It is coming from here. Fine, so you have to just copy this address of yours and paste it in place of this. Okay, and rest everything is going to remain the same except this region. So for me, it is US East 1. For you, it can be US North 1 or anything. So you have to change this and this. Okay, that's it. Rest everything is going to remain the same. What will happen? Let me just show it to you. So it is for logging into the ECR, okay, directly through your VS Code. Let me just show it to you live, okay, so that you can understand it. So once you fire this command and it executes successfully, you will see this login succeeded thing. Right, it's great. Now coming back to the notepad, the next thing that we have to do is we have to tag and push the images to ECR. So there are two images, right? One is front end and the other one is back end. We have to now push them to ECR. So we have used this tag. We've used this line for tagging the images. Now, while tagging the images, you have to make sure that here you have to put the name of that folder in which your front-end code is present. So for me, it is front-end npx. That's the reason I've put here front-end npx. And then here, the URL of your front-end repository will come. So this is the one for me. It can be something else for you. So just put it over here, right? That's one thing you have to remember for both backend as well as front-end. So if you see here in this, the folder's name is backend for me. Okay, that's the reason I've put backend here. And then I put the URL for the repository I've created for the backend image. Once you're done with configuring these commands, simply come in your terminal and you have to fire them like this. This is how you have to fire them. Okay, and your images will get tagged. Once your images get tagged, the next thing that comes is pushing them to the front end and the backend ECR that we have created on AWS. So the first image that we are going to push is the front end image. You have to do nothing, just copy this part. Where is that front end URL? So this is the front end URL, right? Just copy it. Okay, and how I created this URL, that's what I'm showing you. So just paste it like this over here in your notepad. In front of this, you have to put Docker push, and at the end you can mention latest. That's it. Okay, your command is ready. You have to just copy it and paste it over here like this, and you have to fire it, and automatically you will see all this happening. So you'll see it happening in real time. So the images from your local Docker desktop will now go to that ECR repository you have created for frontend. Same thing you have to do for pushing the image to the backend also. Okay, so just copy the URL, or else you can take this part. It's one and the same thing. Just take this part from the tag command, put it over here, and then in the beginning you can write Docker push and simply use this complete command for pushing the backend image to the backend ECR named Registry. Once you are done with pushing the images, now the next thing that comes is creating the Kubernetes cluster. So remember this, that you have to install EKS and you need to have kubectl installed on your device. Fine. So let me just show it to you once. If I fire here EKS so see, my terminal didn't give me any error. Why? Because I installed it, and that's the reason I am getting all these things. Okay, same thing goes with kubectl also. So remember this thing, that if you're working with Kubernetes and you want to control each and everything of your cluster, of your AWS with this terminal on your VS Code, it's very easy. You just need to have these tools installed on your device. How you can install these two tools, let me just show that also to you. So a couple of hours back I shooted a video, right, which was based on how to deploy a Flask application on Kubernetes cluster. This one I'm talking about. So what you can do, you can simply check out this video, and in this video, besides explaining the steps which are required for deploying the Flask application on AWS cluster, I've also covered the steps required for installing these two tools. So I'm not going to take it again. Just, it's my request, if you don't know about these tools, just visit this video. You don't need to check out the entire video. Just check that part where I'm explaining how exactly you can install these two tools on your device. Fine. So your work will reduce. Okay. If you are done with installing, these two tools, it will be extremely great, and you'll find it very easy to interact with your Kubernetes cluster. Now, once you're done with installing EKS you have to use this complete command for setting up the Kubernetes cluster through your VS Code. So see, I've fired this command. Okay, and simply it has created a beautiful Kubernetes cluster. Sorry, not this one. This is the one. This is the one which gave me an error, right? Because there was a cluster which was already there with this name. That's the reason I got this error. But yes, afterwards I changed the name, I made some changes in the command and it worked fine, and I was able to get a cluster with name EKS ETL node clustered on my AWS. Okay, so this is the command that you have to fire. Now what all things you have to change when you will fire this command, let me show that also to you. So till this point everything will remain same. Now this is the name which I've given to my cluster. If you want to use this name, you don't need to change this part. Otherwise you can just change it to something that you want to have for your cluster. Okay, then version is going to be the same, 1.30. If you want to use some other version, it's totally your call. Then region, what is the region in which you have deployed your services or in which you want to deploy your services? So that's what you will have to mention here. Node group name. So this is what I've given the name to my node group. If you want to change it, feel free to do it. Now, after that, what should be the node type? Node type means the instances or the servers, right? That will be on which I would like to host my application in the form of Docker images. So I would like to host it as P3. Then how many nodes do I want to have? I want to have 2 nodes. Minimum, there should be 1 always, and maximum there should be 2, right? Now I'll tell you something. If I come here on my Kubernetes cluster at EC2, so you'll see 2 nodes in place, right? These are the 2 nodes which I got created with the help of this command. Fine, so just copy this command and paste it in your console, and rest everything will be done by this command. You don't have to go and create cluster manually and set everything manually. So what happens is when you create things with commands, they automatically get connected with each other. Okay, maybe possible that you do some stuff with commands and then you do some stuff manually. What happens is you get errors again and again. And you finally what you do is you just leave those things. Okay, so that's what I don't want you guys to do. If you are using commands, use commands. If you are doing everything manually, do everything manually. But when we use commands, it becomes very easier for us to install and to connect everything with each other. Okay, so that's the reason I prefer commands over creating things manually. Now once you're done with creating this cluster, what is the next thing? Create Kubernetes manifest. When it comes to manifest, with manifest I mean to say the deployment files and the service files. Now there are 2 things, backend and frontend. So they're going to be 2 deployment YAML files, one for frontend and the other for backend, and 2 service files, one for backend and the other for frontend. What do we have in this backend.deployment file? Let me just show that to you. Name of the image, okay, application's name, then we have the image name. Okay, this is what I got from here. Fine, you just have to change this part, rest everything. If you want to change, feel free to change it. You know, you can change the name, you can change the app name also, you know, totally depends upon your requirements. But this image thing has to be changed because for you it's going to be something else, right? So you can change this name and then it's good to go. Now let's come on front-end deployment. So everything is same here also. The only thing which differs is this image name. So for me it is this, and for you it may be different. So you just have to use these files and change this part only in it. That's it. Same thing goes with the service files also. Service files, you can keep it as it is. I want to have my backend running on 3000. That's the reason I kept 3000. I want to have my front end on 80 and there should be a load balancer. That's the reason I've configured it on 80. Okay, so once you're done with creating all these 4 files inside your front end folder, okay, you have to now execute them. You have to now use them for deploying your application on the cluster that you have created through this command. How you will do it? So now it's time for us to apply the front-end deployment and services. So this is a command with the help of which you can apply the frontend deployment.yaml configuration on the Kubernetes cluster. Just fire this command, and what will happen once you are done with the executing this command? So nothing it will show you. It means that it executed successfully. Second thing that you have to do is you have to fire this service. Okay, front-end service. So these two will go together, then these two will go together. So the first thing you have to do is you have to set up the front end on the Kubernetes cluster. So these two will help you in doing that. And for setting up the backend on Kubernetes cluster, these two will help you. So here, as you can see, when I fired this kubectl apply -f frontend.service, it created for me a service with new frontend. Same thing happened when I fired this command called backend-service.yaml. So backend service got created. Fine. So now when I ran this kubectl get pods for checking the number of pods which have got created on that Kubernetes cluster of mine, I was able to see 4 different pods, 2 for the backend and 2 for the front end, right? Because there are 2 nodes in the backend. So this is for the first node. I'm talking about these 2 nodes. Okay, we have deployed the front end and backend on this. We have deployed the front end and backend on this. Okay, so there is this backend and this front end for this, and there is this backend and this front end for this one. As simple as that. Okay, because for running a React Node application, you need both the things. Fine. Now what is the next thing? We have to find out the URL on which we can access the application. So this command only can give you that. Let me just fire this command over here and show it to you live what happens when we try to get the information of pods. So see, we are getting the information of pods here. I think it didn't give me the information of that service. So I can simply use svc over here. Now, this is the URL. If I access it on my browser, I'll be able to see the application running. Okay, so that is how you can get the URL from your Kubernetes cluster on which you can access your application simply. Fine. So these are the steps with the help of which you can easily deploy a full-fledged React Node-based application on a Kubernetes cluster, and you can make it accessible online to your users. That is it from my side in this lecture. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye-bye. Take care and have a great day, guys.